Hello everybody, it's Joe here and welcome back once again to my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. We are now at Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix and one of my favourite circuits on the calendar. I am looking forward to this one. So last time out in France, Lance Stroll took a surprising win, but now we're here at Spa. I've got a few points from France and I'm hoping to get a few more here. Sprint weekend, of course, this qualifying is critical, but one thing I don't thank Sargent for is that in the middle of Eau Rouge, just slowing right down and impeding me, so we had to change front wing. But once I did that, I went right back out there, trying to nail a lap together, and I'll be honest, it was a mixed bag of a lap. Could I have gone again? Possibly, but the tyres already felt past their best. And in the end, the lap time was good enough for P16, but in the end it wasn't good enough to retain it, and we are P20 for the sprint. We have a lot of work to do this weekend if we are going to move forwards, and it's a frustrating qualifying.
It's wet here today and we're expecting those downpours to continue. This will make for a difficult sprint for all the teams. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and the smooth operator Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Norris, Gasly, Albon, Ocon, Magnussen, Bottas, Joe, Hauger, Oscar Piastri, Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg, Sonoda, Sparkles, De Vries, and Logan Sargent. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. They've been involved in a number of costly incidents lately. That's got to affect their mindset going into this race.
Certainly confidence is an important factor.
The rain has arrived at Spa, but it's certainly not going to dampen my spirits. Yeah, okay, I'm done with the puns. But it's lights out and away we go. We've got a relatively decent start, nothing particularly special, but I am going to have a look at taking a dive up the inside and seeing if I can pick off a few of these. Down the inside we go, and it looks like we have picked off a couple, but there's an Alfa Romeo alongside me that isn't particularly willing to let me go anytime soon. But we're side by side with him, and I think it's Bottas alongside me, and we get past him into Eau Rouge, although I nearly lose it in doing so. I go quite deep, and I think that forced Bottas deep as well. But we're now going up the Kemmel Straight. We have moved up to P15, and I'm having a look at Guan Yu Zhou ahead, who's got Dennis Hauger ahead of him, our teammate. So already making some gains in this sprint race. Blanchimont is very scary in the wet as we go down the inside, but I've missed my brakes completely and shot straight across the chicane, and that involves me having to give back the place to Joe and Dennis. And now we're having another look after Eau Rouge at getting past Zhou Guanyu side by side with the Alfa Romeo driver, and we have got him, and we're now going to try and pass Dennis Hauger at the same time too. Nope, we're going to back out of that one. I'm thinking twice about it. We've still got a few laps of this sprint race, and I don't want to do anything rash and end up losing the car early on. So now trying the outside of Dennis Hauger. Remember, this is just to set the grid for the race, so I'm hoping to move up a few more places if I can, to give myself the best chance of going after points in the race. We're now trying to go around the outside of Hauger. Hauger holding the inside line, teammates going side by side, but I've gone a bit too deep there, and that's allowed Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo back through. He is particularly tenacious today, and he's not going to make it easy for me to get through. We're on lap 2 out of 8. Quite a short sprint race here, as we now try and get back past Zhou in the Alfa Romeo side by side, down the Kemmel Straight, braking later, and retaking P14, and now having a look at Dennis Hauger. But one thing I will agree to in this race, if I pass Hauger and I cannot catch anyone ahead of him, I will give the place back to him, because I like to think of myself as a sporting teammate. So down the inside of Hauger I go. That now moves me up into P13, and now I have a few laps to try and get after Esteban Ocon. If I don't catch him, I will give the place back to Hauger. In the end, we didn't have the pace to catch Ocon, and I was starting to struggle with the tyres towards the end of the race, so a deal's a deal. Russell wins the sprint race, and once we come out of the last corner, I will give P13 back to my teammate, and it will be P14 on the grid. A very uneventful sprint race, I'll be honest. Not an awful lot happened. Even ahead of us, it was particularly quiet, so for now, we're taking P14 in the sprint, and that is where we'll be starting the main event. George Russell taking the win, then Sainz getting second, Verstappen third, then it's Leclerc, Perez, Alonso, Stroll and Norris rounding out the top 8, with Gasly and Albon rounding out the 10, and it's a wet start for the feature race too.
Spa-Francorchamps hosted its first Grand Prix back in 1925, and this historic track is loved by drivers and fans alike, and us here in the commentary box too. So it's a warm welcome from the Belgian Grand Prix. Spa-Francorchamps is a 4.35-mile tour of the Ardennes countryside, with 9 rights and 10 lefts, giving us a grand total of 19 corners. Average lap speeds in the dry can reach about 145 miles per hour, but without a significant improvement in the conditions, we're not going to be seeing anything like that today. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Perez, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Sainz, Norris, Albon, Magnussen, Ocon, Hauger, Sparkles, Joe, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Liam Lawson, Sargent, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, and Nick de Vries. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Joining me for the Grand Prix once again is none other than Anthony Davidson. The last few races have been a bit rough for them, unable to get a clean run. That's got to have some effect on their confidence, surely.
It's not an ideal situation by any means. When you get into a bad run like that, there's always a risk of frustration creeping in, which can cause more mistakes and locks you into this vicious cycle. Hopefully today they can get through turn 1 cleanly and stay calm for the rest of the race.
Right, here's hoping we can get a few points from this one. 22 laps to the Belgian Grand Prix ahead. It's a damp start, but it's lights out and away we go. We've got a little bit of wheel spin there. I think someone's going to try and get down the left of me, but if I brake late into La Source and take a tight line again, I might be able to pick a couple off. No, Albon and Hauger get ahead, as does Esteban Ocon, who I had got past by braking a bit later, but Ocon deciding he wants the place back. I was fancying a little run into Eau Rouge, but I fought against it, and in fact I've gone off now, trying to push too hard. But Ocon and Albon are ahead, and Hauger is placing himself well. Hopefully this will be a good race for the two of us. We can both make some gains here, but I think Hauger is battling Albon, so Albon not wanting to stay behind, and I'm hoping that Hauger can keep the place, but he hasn't. Albon has got ahead and into P10. So now we're going around the outside of Esteban Ocon. Can we hang it out around the outside? Can we get the move done? Yes, we can, as we go down the inside into No Name Corner. Ocon will have to back out of that one. And now I'm directly behind Hauger. And I'm hoping my teammate doesn't give me too much hassle in getting past, because I feel like our race pace could be quite strong if we are able to get past. It is going to dry up in a few laps, so I'm thinking what we can do in terms of strategy as I go down the inside of Dennis Hauger, making the move into P11. George Russell leading the way, then setting the fastest lap. But my next concern is getting past Alex Albon and getting into the top 10. And he's a little bit backed up going into La Source. We're going to take advantage of that and just slide casually down the inside up into P10, and we're staying with the two McLarens at the end of the next lap. And I'm going to go down the inside, repeat the move, and we've got past Lando Norris, moving up into P9. So already looking quite good as this race starts to progress, and I'm hoping that as the track starts to dry out, we can only gain more. Right, on the back of Kevin Magnussen. After Eau Rouge, I'm going to head down the inside for a look here. Magnussen trying to defend, but Magnussen wasn't able to defend, but we've gone deep. Is Magnussen going to be able to get the place back? Yes, he is. Magnussen retaking the place after I had a good move down the inside, but the problem was I wasn't able to get the cast box in time. But now we're going to go down the inside of Magnussen, getting that done, going a little bit wide as we do so, but we have gained the place on Magnussen. And next up is Sainz, and we are pitting in as the track is drying. I'm going to do something a little bit different though. Instead of going hards to the end, because I'm not sure hards would go to the end, I'm taking softs and then mediums. So I'm going to pit twice and see how that works for me. Straight back on track then, and we are down in P22, and we're actually the first to pit in for slicks. I was gambling on it a lap earlier than I think everyone else did, but it turned out to be completely the right call. DRS enabled, and as such we have been able to jump a few cars by anticipating the weather and taking a gamble of pitting in a lap earlier than any of the others did, and that's really worked for us. When we nearly lose it in Eau Rouge again, but we're already catching Charles Leclerc, who is on the hard tyres. Everybody ahead of us on the hard tyres. So I think it's a given that most of the field are going to try and go to the end from there. But look how much more traction we have on softs than they do on hards on this cold track. It's working for us, as we're now going to have a look down the inside of Charles Leclerc into Stavelot, and we've got that done. Logan Sargent directly ahead. He hasn't made his pit stop yet, so he's still on intermediates, and as a result still struggling round, and I'm not waiting behind Logan Sargent. We're going to force our way past the American driver up into P8 I think that is, and there are still a couple ahead of us that haven't pitted. So when this shakes out, we're going to be in P4, and now we're attacking Fernando Alonso for P3. This race is really coming to us now as we go down the left of the Kemmel Straight, side by side with Alonso, and the traction advantage of these soft tyres really helping us at this stage. We move into third, and now we're putting some pressure on the two leaders, Max Verstappen and George Russell, and we're really starting to apply the pressure. Can we get ahead of these two? We weren't able to before we had to make our pit stop, and at the end of lap 10 I could feel the softs going, and I figured that the mediums would go to the end from this point. So it was a bit of a gamble to take on softs, and we have dropped outside the points, but I'm going to have faster tyres for a good few laps now than the rest of the field. So I really think we can make some good gains from this point. We are down out of the points and in P12, but I feel like the opportunities are going to come to us, especially if anyone else on this field decides they're going to make a second pit stop. But for now, we're on mediums, Hauger is on hards, and the new medium tyres just working so well there. Past our teammate, up into 11th, and now we can start chasing down the points. Ocon and Norris are our first targets, and that's a Williams blowing out. I think that might be the Williams of Logan Sargent dropping out of the race. And we are catching Lando Norris at a vast rate of knots. Look at that. Fastest lap, a 1:44.2. We are bringing that gap down, and I really feel like some good points are still on the table here. We've got quite a way of this race to go, still another 10 laps, so I really feel like we could get some good points here if we keep pushing and we're able to keep this pace up. That is the plan. And look, Magnussen and Ocon ahead of us. They're deciding to pit again, so a few of them will be pitting again, but I do feel like most of them won't, as we now move into 8th place, so we're already on for 4 championship points here. I wonder what Leclerc and co ahead are going to do. but we're now really catching up to Lando Norris. And look at that, Dennis Hauger in the top 10. Whether he'll be able to stay there is another question altogether, especially with cars behind him on a much newer tyre. But we're now having a look at Lando Norris. Look how slow he is through Blanchimont. The traction advantage for us is working a treat. Down the inside of the McLaren we go. We do end up going a bit deep, but we keep the position, move up to 7th, which will become 6th, thanks to Leclerc making a pit stop. So Leclerc pitting in 2. Will anybody else make a second pit stop? At this stage, they don't appear to be doing so. And if they do, they're going to lose quite a bit of time, as now in the latter stage of the races, I'm focused on trying to catch the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. And I do think he's reachable because we're gaining on him by just over a second a lap. So it is very possible to catch the Aston Martin. And this is a very solid race for us, up in P6, which is about to become 5th, as we're now on the penultimate lap, charging down towards Lance Stroll. We're going to have DRS on the Kemmel Straight here, but I don't think we're going to be close enough to take advantage of it here. Look how close we're getting, but it's not going to be enough to dive down the inside. We are just going to have to wait it out and maybe have an attack later in the lap. Here we go. Having a look down the inside, a Stroll there, and we get the Mercedes and we move up into P5. I don't know why I said he was in an Aston Martin. I do apologise, but we've passed the Mercedes driver, move up into 5th, and look at Stroll coming back at us down the inside of Blanchimont. That's very brave as we stick it out round the outside of Blanchimont. And somehow, we hold on to 5th place as we now start the last lap. Oh my goodness me, that was a moment where my heart just leapt out of my chest, and I really thought that could have been a collision. As it turned out, no collision occurred whatsoever, and it looks as though 5th is going to be our finishing position. After starting 13th and making 2 pit stops after changing tyres, I really feel like the strategy we ran was the best one to get us the result that we had. I feel like if we'd just gone to hards, I don't know if we'd have been able to get as high as we did, whereas I think taking on softs and mediums and just going absolutely ham with the tyres really worked for us today, and as a result, it is going to be P5, it's going to be 10 championship points. Max Verstappen takes the win. I nearly go off at the bus stop. Stroll's going to have a look. No way through there though. 5th place, 10 points, a very decent haul from this race.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
What a great race then, and a magnificent victory here at the Belgian Grand Prix. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win. So let's see what effect this result.
So it's Max Verstappen and Red Bull that come away triumphant from Spa then, with a 1-2 for Red Bull, with Sergio Perez coming second. George Russell, who won the sprint race, having to settle for third. and Alonso taking 4th, and we round out the top 5 with the fastest lap, so that's 11 points that we're taking from this race. A decent haul. Stroll gave me a run for my money on the last couple of laps in 6th, and then Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon and Norris completing your top 10 from this race. Dennis Hauger ending up 12th and over 20 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen. I don't know, I was hoping for a little bit more from Hauger. I was hoping that we could have taken a double points finish here, but Max Verstappen cutting down the championship lead that Fernando Alonso has. Sergio Perez in 3rd, also a shout, 27 points off. Russell in 4th and Carlos Sainz in 5th, and we're still 9th in the championship, so we've extended our gap to Nick De Vries, who isn't doing particularly well at the moment. Thank you for watching this instalment of Career Mode. Don't forget to leave a like, hit the subscribe button if you're new and you want to see more content from me. Until the next time, TTFN, ta-ta for now, take care.